Hi, and welcome to this iSHARE video. In this iSHARE video, we will demonstrate a full end-to-end flow, where a service consumer provides delegation evidence. In this video, we will go through the whole Postman collection that demos the functionality of the iSHARE network. You can download this Postman collection yourself on the iSHARE developer portal. You can also download here these accompanying slides, which provide the backstory to this end-to-end flow. This video and Postman collection are specifically meant for cases where the service consumer provides delegation evidence. In a different video that you will be able to find on the developer portal, we will also discuss the case where the service provider requests delegation evidence. First, we'll recap what the iSHARE scheme consists of. In the iSHARE scheme, we have adhering parties and certified parties. Adhering parties are parties that are engaged in data sharing or are in some way related to the content of the data. Certified parties, on the other hand, offer specific services which enable large-scale data sharing, whilst also fulfilling a trusted function within the iSHARE network. There's also the scheme owner. The scheme owner oversees admission to the iSHARE network and manages an overview of active members. We're in the following fictional use case. Container Z is stored at warehouse 13. ABC Trucking is a transporter that wants container data on container Z, and Banana & Co. is a banana company that has the rights to access this data at warehouse 13. However, ABC Trucking needs to get this container data, so Banana & Co. has delegated the rights to access this data to ABC Trucking, and he has stored this delegation at the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry. So in this use case, ABC Trucking can use that delegation that he can get from the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry and go to warehouse 13 with that delegation to get the container data. The Postman collection that we will show demonstrates a fictional use case. Banana & Co. will need to register at the Authorization Registry AskMeAnything that they delegate access rights to ABC Trucking. ABC Trucking will then request this delegation evidence at AskMeAnything and provide this to warehouse 13. Warehouse 13 will check this delegation evidence and return the container data if everything is valid. Some of the calls in this presentation are not iSHARE calls. These will be marked red. All other calls will be iSHARE calls and will need to be made according to the iSHARE specifications. So let's recap what these roles are within the iSHARE network. ABC Trucking is the service consumer, as it will consume the service at warehouse 13, because it will request container data about container Z. So warehouse 13 is the service provider. It provides a service to ABC Trucking. Banana & Co. is the entitled party. It is the party entitled to the data offered by the service provider, warehouse 13, because the data concerns data about Banana & Co.'s shipment. It has stored this delegation at AskMeAnything, the Authorization Registry. In the Postman collection, we will be acting as the role of ABC Trucking. There are 4 main actions for ABC Trucking. First, it will authenticate itself at the Authorization Registry AskMeAnything. Then, it will request delegation evidence from the Authorization Registry. Thirdly, it will have to authenticate itself at warehouse 13, the service provider. And then fourthly, using the access token from warehouse 13 and the delegation evidence from the Authorization Registry, it can request the data at warehouse 13. Beforehand, 3 of the iSHARE parties need to have requested the trusted list. These are ABC Trucking, warehouse 13, and AskMeAnything. This trusted list contains all certificate authorities that we trust in iSHARE. In the test environment, these are the iSHARE test certificate authorities. In the production environment, these will be the PKI override certificate authorities and the eIDAS certificate authorities, or trusted service providers. They will need this trusted list so that they can verify the certificates that the participants use, and therefore verify the identity of the participants. To get the trusted list, participants will have to request an access token at the scheme owner, and when you have received that access token, request a trusted list at the scheme owner. They will then receive a trusted list JSON Web Token. Now let's see how this would work in Postman. We open up the demo beforehand getting the trusted list. And we will do this from the perspective of ABC Trucking, but it will be the same for warehouse 13 and the Authorization Registry. First, it will request an access token from the scheme owner, and it needs these values in the body for that. The most important one of these is the client assertion, which proves to the scheme owner that the requesting party is ABC Trucking. In the Postman Collection, this client assertion is generated in the pre-request script. In actual use cases, iSHARE parties should generate this client assertion locally, as you should never share your private keys online. For test purposes, the dummy parties do generate this client assertion online. Now let's see what happens when we send a request to the scheme owner using these values. We see that we receive an access token. And not only do we receive an access token, but we see also that it expires in an hour and that it's a bearer token. Using this access token, we can now request a trusted list from the scheme owner. The Postman Collection automatically copies the access token to the header value authorization of the GET request to get a trusted list. So the value should be bearer and then the access token. In the test environment, there's also the do not sign value. If the do not sign value is true, the scheme owner will not encode its response so that it's readable to us. And we see that we receive the trusted list. In test, this means two CAs. The iShare test CA, which is the root CA that signs all iShare test certificates, and the iShare test CA TLS, which is the intermediate CA that distributes test certificates. They also offer the certificate fingerprint in a SHA-256 sum. This means that you can verify the authenticity of the certificate that you receive. And we see that both have the validity and status of valid and granted, so we can trust that these are still valid iShare test certificate authorities. If we had not checked the do not sign value, we would have received the following JSON Web Token, which is what you would receive in the production environment. Before the use case starts, Banana & Co. will need to have stored the delegation evidence at the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry. This is not an iShare call. It can do so with any standard. iShare does not standardize the input to the Authorization Registry regarding delegation evidence. So, Banana & Co. delegates the rights to access data regarding containers X, Y, and Z on his behalf to ABC Trucking. And it will also have to tell ABC Trucking where it has stored this delegation regarding containers X, Y, and Z. At this point, the actual use case can start. It starts by the service consumer checking if AskMeAnything is still a valid iShare Authorization Registry. To do so, it will need to connect with the scheme owner. It gets the connect token, as we have just seen with getting the trusted list. And with the response, the access token, it will be able to request the information on a party using the /parties endpoint with the party ID. The party ID for AskMeAnything is eu.aori.nl 000000004. The response from the scheme owner will be a party token, which will have information on the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry. Let's check out how this works in Postman. We'll need to go to the subset ABC getting delegation evidence. First, ABC requests the access token from the scheme owner, and this will have the same values as we've seen before. Now, using the access token that we will receive, Postman will automatically copy that to the header of the GET request on /parties. Here we see the bearer has the value of the access token we have just requested. And again, the do not sign value will be true, so that we will be able to read it in this demo. There are a few parameters for the /parties endpoint. If we want to request information on a certain party, we can enter the AORI value associated to that party. If we then send the request, the response will be a list containing one party, the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry. We see that the party ID matches the party name, and the status in iShare is active. We see the start and end dates of its activity, and we also see certifications for this party. We see that AskMeAnything is a valid iShare Authorization Registry. Lastly, we see the capabilities URL, which shows us where you can check the capabilities of the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry. So, ABC Trucking has verified that AskMeAnything is a valid authorization registry within iSHARE. It will then ask for a connect token at the authorization registry, and behind the scenes, the authorization registry will then check the certificate and the request that ABC Trucking has sent, and it will also check with the scheme owner if ABC Trucking is a valid iSHARE party. To do so, it will need to get a connect token, and with that connect token, request the party information of ABC Trucking, just as we did before, to check the party information of the authorization registry. If all of this is valid, AskMeAnything can send out an access token back to ABC Trucking. And using this access token, ABC Trucking can request the delegation evidence. Actually, what ABC Trucking is saying here is, am I, ABC Trucking, allowed to access data about container Z at warehouse 13? Now, internally, Authorization Registry will check if this delegation is stored here. And it will find the delegation that Banana & Co. has stored there with regards to the container Z. So it will respond with a delegation token saying, yes, here is the evidence for that. Of course, all these responses are signed JSON Web Tokens. So any participant that receives the delegation token can check whether or not AskMeAnything has sent it out. ABC Trucking will also verify this evidence itself to see if it's useful information and whether or not it's signed correctly. Now let's see how this looks in Postman. Here, ABC Trucking will request an access token from the dummy AR. In the client assertion, we now ask an access token from the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry instead of the scheme owner. However, the response should be mainly the same. In the background, AskMeAnything is now checking the validity of the certificate and the status with the scheme owner. We can now use this access token that we just received to request the delegation evidence from the dummy AR. Of course, in the header, in the authorization value, we'll have to add the access token that we just received. And then in the body, we'll have to put the delegation mask. The delegation mask is a complex object, but we've described it in a different video that we will link below. To go over it quickly, we see that this is a delegation that is issued by Banana & Co. to ABC Trucking with regards to container Z. And it has delegated the rights to ABC Trucking to request the estimated time of arrival and the weight. And ABC Trucking will get permission to read, create, update, or delete data regarding container Z's attributes. And it can do so at the service provider warehouse 13. And it will ask us if all of these actions are actually permitted. Now, if we send out this delegation request, we get this complex delegation token. This is an encoded JSON Web Token. But if we had checked the box Do Not Sign with a value of true, we would have received a readable format. And we see that the delegation token is still valid, with the same information as we had before, except we now also have the licenses, which tells us what we can do with the data that we will receive. And we see that we're permitted to do these actions that we requested. With this delegation token, we will now be able to request the data at warehouse 13. Now ABC Trucking is ready to head on to warehouse 13. ABC Trucking will first identify itself at warehouse 13. Warehouse 13 will check if the certificate and the request is valid, and check if ABC Trucking is a valid iSHARE party. To do so, it again needs a connect token from the scheme owner, and with the access token that it receives, it requests the information on ABC Trucking. This will give a party token from the scheme owner, which will list ABC Trucking as a valid iSHARE party. So it can return an access token to ABC Trucking. Now let's check how this looks in Postman. We'll need to head to the subset ABC request data at warehouse 13. First, ABC Trucking will request the access token from warehouse 13. And this is no different from the other two times that we've requested an access token, except of course that the client assertion is now meant for warehouse 13. And we see that we actually receive an access token, which means that behind the scenes quite a lot has happened already. So what has happened? Warehouse 13 has checked the certificate and the request from ABC Trucking, And then it has requested the connect token from the scheme owner. And using that connect access token, it has requested party information from ABC Trucking. And again, we see that ABC Trucking is an active iSHARE party, which is the value he should be looking for. And we see also that the party name and party ID conform to the client assertion that has been sent out. Now, ABC Trucking has received the access token from Warehouse 13, and it still has the delegation evidence from the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry. So it can use these two tokens to ask Warehouse 13 about the data regarding container Z. It's important to note that this request is not an iSHARE call, and therefore is not standardized within iSHARE. The actual data exchange is outside of the scope of iSHARE, as iSHARE focuses on identification, authentication, and authorization. At this point, the service consumer is authenticated and authorized, and therefore the actual data exchange is outside of the scope of iSHARE. So he does a GET request to Warehouse 13, and he shows us that he has the delegation evidence. Again, behind the scenes, the service provider will check this evidence, and it will also have to check now the certificate of the Authorization Registry. Recall that the delegation and token is signed by the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry. So, Warehouse 13 will have to check if AskMeAnything is actually a valid iSHARE party. It checks the evidence, it checks the certificate, and it will have to connect to the scheme owner to ask party information on AskMeAnything. And the scheme owner will respond with a party token. As the access tokens are valid for an hour, the service provider will not have to renew its access token for this request. It can reuse the access token that it had used previously. If the response is correctly, that the AskMeAnything Authorization Registry is a valid iSHARE Authorization Registry, and if the delegation evidence is correct, and the access token it has issued to ABC Trucking is correct, it can finally return the container data. Although this flow looks like a lot of calls, in reality this would only take a matter of seconds. Now let's see how this would look in the Postman Collection. Here we'll need to head to the subset ABC requests a service at Warehouse 13. Now let's do our GET request on the containers. In the header we have the access token in the authorization field and the delegation token in the delegation evidence field. We'll have to request this for container Z, as that is the container for which the delegation evidence is valid. And if we send this to the Warehouse 13, we see that we receive the valid information on this container. Its weight is 67.22 kilos, and its estimated time of arrival is 1:30. Of course, behind the scenes, something more happened, as we just described. Warehouse 13 will check the AR at the scheme owner and see that it's a valid authorization registry in iSHARE. This concludes the Postman demo, which you can download on the developer portal. It also concludes the slides that accompany this Postman collection. If you have any questions regarding this end-to-end flow, please do not hesitate to contact us. And also do not hesitate to fiddle a bit with the values in this demo. For example, the /parties endpoint or the delegation endpoint. We hope this demonstration was informative to you. Thanks.